Hello, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. This is Too Many Bones. We are on day number 6, which you can see right here with our day counter in the land of Daylor. And we're going after that guy up there, the green one, Drellen Paleface. He is in Shellfish. We are in Shellfish. We just happened to do a couple encounters just outside of that city, which is right here. And essentially we're just doing some encounters to basically train Patches up so that he's ready for this fight, because the fight that's coming up will likely be very interesting. I don't know how it'll go. I've never faced Drellen, so I have no prior knowledge as to what he can and cannot do. I haven't even looked it up. So it'll be very interesting when we get there what's going to happen. But in order to resolve or to pick it up exactly where we left off in the last video, we had finished our battle here by taking out a direwolf pup and a... what was the name of the other one now? I'm kind of forgetting. It was called just a regular direwolf. Both of them were kind of nasty in combination, but we were able to manage to just barely hang on and survive. So that was amazing. And we did a little bit of trickery in terms of running away from the direwolf in order to give us enough time to use our skill dice to make some fantastic rolls near the end there and manage to pull off the win, which is awesome. So what happens when you win? Well, we already know that. We just take a look at the encounter card. There is no choice bonus, as you can see, because both these circles are empty. But at the very bottom here, we have our encounter rewards. And so we're obviously going to gain a progress point, which we don't necessarily need, but I guess we can brag about it. Because at this point, progress-wise, we are already as far up the trail as we can go. We are in Shellfish, so we do not need progress points going forward. We also have loot and training points. So let's go ahead and pull our loot and find out what we get, because I'm kind of excited to see what we end up getting from those wolves. Looks like we found a gadget arm. Okay, so this has it's a two-use item. So essentially that little 2 and 1 up in the top right corner signify your uses. So when it sits in your kind of area here, if you use it the first time, it ticks like this, and then you use it the second time and it disappears. It's kind of like this way of counting how many times you're using it. So first time it sits like this. Once you use, after the first use, it goes like this, and then it just goes. And obviously on the second use, it's gone. But yeah, it's a gadget arm. I don't know much about it. Let's take a look. It says, if a training point attempts, you may make another attempt. Hey, that's not bad. So we're actually going into the training portion next. So that plans out really nicely, because if we fail on something we need to roll like an attack or defense, we can use this. And then what does it say on the bottom here? It says, just a little quote, says, design requires the removal of your right arm. Terrible. The left arm would be much more sensible. Tink. Now, I haven't played with Tink yet, so I guess it's maybe an inside joke or something like that, or some weird quote that I'm not too familiar with, but regardless, it's a pretty cool looking item. It does have 2 uses, and that's the other cool thing. We can do this twice, and that's really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put this down here. Now remember, I can only carry up to 4 loot at once. Currently I have 3. So as time goes on here, I'm gonna get to a point where I'm gonna have to start using stuff, and the gadget arm will come in handy actually right away, because we're gonna move right into our training phase. So, or not phase, but our training portion of the reward phase. And this is where things get interesting, because going back to the previous video where I had asked you guys what you wanted to do, what you thought Patches should boost up before the next battle, all that type of stuff. I got so many comments that said, you know, you should boost dexterity, you should boost attack, all this kind of stuff. We didn't really focus too much on the skill dice, but one thing I noticed that was really kind of that was kind of a downside of the last battle was not having enough defense dice. It's nice to have 5 dex, but when you're only rolling attack and you have hardly any options on the defense side, I found I was taking too many wounds, and I need to, that's funny, I've renamed the game, Too Many Wounds. So I need to essentially get another defense dice here, or at least try to train for it. Now, how this one works, because we haven't done this one yet, but you guys will see this soon, is with a defense die, you go ahead and you roll your 1. Now, if I was to get a bone, you actually are allowed to re-roll again 1 more time to see if you pass it. Whereas with attack, you just roll, and if you get bones, you're done. Any bone, you're done. So at this point, me rolling for an attack, for instance, rolling 4 dice and hoping not to get a bone, I'd have to roll pretty good. So we're gonna go for the defense, I think, this time. And then the second thing, it'll hinge on how this goes. If I end up failing this completely, then essentially I'm going to end up having to decide whether I want to go for skill dice and do something different, right? Because then I've used that training point here, and I can't use that training point again in that same slot, although I could use the second training point to try here. But anyway, so let's go ahead and try to train up defense first. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab 1 defense dice. So this should be pretty easy, I would think. Based on my rolling and how successful I've been, I might get lucky here and be able to pull this off. So here we go, defense dice in hand. And are we gonna train successfully? We did not. Okay, guys. Now, see, the good thing is when you're going to fail on something like this, the wonderful one to fail on is the defense train because we get a free reroll. I don't need to use my gadget arm because I could use this. It says if a training attempt fails, you may make another attempt, but that'd be a waste because we do get a free reroll from defense. And I'm going to use that right away. So here we go. Let's see if I can avoid getting that bone again. Nailed it. So there we go. We got it. So actually, really cool. We've actually now utilized all of our skill dice for Patches. He has a die in every slot now. So we've used our first training point and we ended up getting an extra defense die. Now this is where things get interesting because, well, it's tough. The other thing that's really handy, I think, and I think because when you're playing solo, I also noticed this. Yes, I think skill dice are going to come into play really heavily, but I'll tell you guys where my mind is in terms of my strategy here and what I'm going to use this last training point on. Where my head goes essentially is we just got ourselves an extra defense dice. We know full well last battle that we ran around here and we had enough movement to get decently away from enemies, but then if we wanted to be like away from an enemy to get close to another one to even have a chance to do an attack, our decks had burnt out by the time we got there. So we basically made a great movement, but had no decks available to make any attack or even to roll defense dice. So bumping up our dexterity would actually make a lot of sense, not only because it allows me to roll more dice, although yes, it would go over the max of me. Well, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would be allowed to roll all of that at once, which would be crazy. But at the same time, if I need to do a lot of movement, I'm also just as capable of using those attack and defense dice while actually moving. And when you're playing solo, by yourself with Patches, I think being able to have that movement around the map is super key, at least at the beginning. Then what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to basically, it's my second training point. This is where my mind is going. I'm thinking I'm going to bump up dexterity. It's an automatic success. It would go to 4. Now, you guys might be thinking, hey, what about fast hands and bone saw? What about stem kit? Because stem kit's actually really good. It gives you a separate buff that is for HP, which ends up sitting on your, cutting off to your side here. When your character's in play, you've got like buff health right here, and it comes from here first before it gets hit off Patches. The reason I'm not going for those just yet is because we are on day 6. I just finished that encounter. We just got these rewards. I'm probably going to do 1 more day worth of encounters, which is going to allow me to potentially, hopefully, gather up 2 more training points. I'm hoping. I don't know, but we'll see. And if I do get those 2 training points, regardless of what I get training-wise, they're going into the skill dice. So essentially, if I go ahead and do what I just did, which I have to stick with this because I've already done it, but I'm going to take this up to 4, giving me the ability to have up to 6 dexterity. That's my 2 training points. I'm now done. But what I'm going to go ahead and end up doing is on the next train up, I'm definitely going to be focusing solely in the skills department. And what I'll end up doing maybe is I'll end up asking you guys, what skills do you think I should be going for? And I know there's been quite a few people who have voiced their opinions saying fast hands and bone saw would be a very wise choice. I think it's also smart as well. Allows me to gives me rerolls on my med kit, and bone saw gives me an extra attack die that is even more vicious than the standard attack die with a high hit of about 3. Sorry, I think. So, and I think the regular hit dice go as high as 2, but this particular one here would trick up to 3, which is pretty crazy if I ended up getting that in play, right? So that's those are just good things. Now, what are we going to do in terms of, well, I guess that's it. That's the training. We've got our loot. We've now satisfied everything on the encounter card. We don't have to bump our progress up, as I already mentioned, because we've already gone ahead and maxed out our progress on this map. So everything's fine there. So we're essentially done. Now what we move to is the recovery phase. So using our flowchart as normal, and we get to go ahead and pick one of the 3 things up top here. So we can trade loot, we can make a lockpicking attempt, or we could rest, recover, search for better loot, scout the area. Well, Patches didn't, he didn't come out of this unscathed. He definitely needs to boost his health. So I am going to rest because I do not want to get in a situation again where I go into a battlefield with low health and get a really nasty enemy. So I'm going to go back up to 6 total health, which is a wise move, I think. I would love to throw one of these things away and then go ahead and try to find better loot, because I got a lot of kind of utility-ish type items here, like a hammer and it kind of looks like a mechanical assistance, like a gear and a gadget arm. I've got a lot of mechanical stuff that give me some help in different areas, but nothing that I've really actually used in any of these situations yet, but I'm sure they will come in handy when they do. So we can go ahead and take this encounter card. We'll put it underneath the pile that we've now established with Drellen, knowing full well that we've covered and satisfied everything we need to attack him. But I'm going to go for one more encounter at the least. So what we're going to do here is start a brand new day. So we're going to go ahead and turn this turn counter, and we've done that to 7. So now we are on our 7th day, and we're going to choose to go ahead and draw a new encounter rather than encounter Drellen. Okay, so here we go. And the cool thing about this, guys, is I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but you remember that special encounter that we had pulled, or I should say we didn't pull, we shuffled it into the deck as a result of something we had done way back. So if I go back here and we take a look through the different ones that we had done at the time, I believe, yeah, oh no, it wasn't that one. It was in the first 3 for sure. Let me see. Sorry about that, guys. I'll see if I can find this quickly. Where was it? Oh, that's right. It wasn't from an encounter. My mistake. It was from a loot card. We had gotten a loot card that was like a treasure map, essentially, that like led us, that would, like, if we discarded it, would allow us to lead to a special encounter, essentially. So that's essentially what's happened. This card was not part of the original build of this deck and got shuffled in, but we got it on the 7th day, and that's great, so we can actually give it a shot. So how about I read this out and we see what we have. So it's called Special Encounter. It's the Ebonite Doorway. It's actually real. The fabled Ebonite Doorway. Its existence is the subject of moonshine, monologues, and fireside tales. And yet here it is. Time to see if the adventure is also real. The map says to press each stone from the smallest to largest to open the door. Check. Now each tunnel stone must be stepped on in the same way. Check. Finally, light the torches in that order. I feel like I should be wearing a hat and a whip. So in other words, Indiana Jones reference there. Whoa, the glow of gold is blinding, but gearlocks don't care about gold. Is there anything useful in here? So let's take a look and find out what we found. Oh, look at this. So we've got 2 choices. One at the top says, I can smell the trove loot from here. That's a good thing. So we have a trove loot, and both of these actually don't have us doing any battling. So that's another kind of positive this whole thing, is we have no battle to do. So we just have a choice. One says, take a trove loot, take a training point. It says each gearlock may draw 1 trove loot. They keep the card or discard it and draw another, which must be kept once you do it the 2nd time if you choose to. Each gearlock may immediately make a lockpick attempt. That's really cool. So we can not only, you almost get a free lockpick attempt that would normally cost you during your recovery phase. You would choose to lockpick something. This card actually allows you to do it right away. Or we do the bottom one, which is, very tough decision. A war room. Now we're talking. Attack and defense stat training attempts here will always ignore all bones. So this basically means it's kind of similar to what we've got with the gadget arm, where we actually have 2 choices here. And the cool thing is that we won't fail on any attack or defense bonuses, but we also know what I just did recently is a lot of stat boosting here, and we're probably more focused now on the skill side of things and boosting up some skills. We want to get some unique dice that patches can use in the future. So I don't know how much this is really going to be helpful for me, because I'm probably not going to boost my attack and defense stats, because I'm kind of happy with the 2 defense dice. I want to kind of focus on starting to build his tree a little bit more, so that when we end up with Drellen, we have a better shot. Now, I'm really, really tempted here to just make a decision on my own and run with it. But I think what I'm going to do, and this is a little bit shorter of a video than my other ones, so I do apologize for that, because I typically go for about 20 minutes or even more in most cases. But I want your guys' feedback on what I should do, because I want you guys to feel just as invested in these decisions as I do. And I've got my own mind set on something. I can tell you there's advantages to both, and you guys can plainly see that. Having a trove loot that we do not currently have, but yet have a stone hammer waiting to crush it open would be very, very cool. And the great thing about it too is it says each gear lock may draw one Trove Loot card, and they can keep the card or discard it and draw another. Now with Trove Loot, you do not get to flip it over and look at it, but I think the reasoning behind this is there is locks on the front of this, and each lock pattern can be different. So I can draw this card and look at it and say, this is a really tough Trove Loot. I don't want to go after it. I'll draw the next one that came up. This one, just so you guys can see in terms of what it's going to need to break into it, is a 5 on the lever pull, a 3 on the trip, and a 1 on the force. The 1 and the 3 are very easy. This card, this stone hammer, would enable me to add 4 to an action die result during your lockpick attempt. So when we try to use, now you guys haven't seen me do this yet, so you guys, there's a handful of you guys that may not be familiar with how lockpicking works, but essentially you roll these dice, and this die here is kind of like your wild card. Essentially allows you to either, you know, change the dice to be what you want it to be, re-roll, all that type of stuff. But every time you choose to unlock one of these combos, you have to lock a dice in, and it becomes almost exhausted for that particular lockpicking attempt. So what ends up happening is you can see there's a mesh of different colors here. Each die has 3 faces that match the specific type of die that this one is more likely to hit on. So in other words, this one has 1, 2, 3 lock or lever sides. So this is the lever die and more favors the lever, but you can still get a force, like a force on this one, and you can still get even a trip on this one. So that's where some of the strategy comes in. You want to try to use you'd want to use this one for lever, you'd want to use this die for trip because it has the 3 yellow sides. Just because of the odds factor, right? But the way you roll those dice in this tray, you may not get what you're looking for, and you may be, you know, stuck with, you know, having to use another die that's better suited for a different lock. But regardless, I've got the stone hammer here, which would add 4 to an action die. So when I go after that very first lever, even though getting 5 on a lever roll is very difficult, I can make it very much easier. All I need to get is a 1 on that roll. I could add the stone hammer, and essentially I'm pounding my way through that first lever check. The 3 and the 1 would likely be much easier, and I could bust right into it. So that's really tempting. That's one of the reasons why I'm looking at the top one saying that that might be a good one, because Trove Loot can give you, from what I understand, and I've never had a Trove Loot in this game, I've never flipped them over, I don't even know what's in the deck. I don't know to what value they'll be in combat or out of combat, but I do know that Trove Loot is valuable stuff, and it's essentially like, it could be as handy as having another skill dice. I don't know, it depends on what we end up pulling, but the cool thing is you don't just get a Trove Loot, you also get a training point. So we'll be able to still go ahead and pick a skill dice up, which is nice. So it kind of gives us the best of both worlds, whereas this one down here will give us a 4th loot. So we have 1, 2, 3. We could go with this one, which should give us a 4th one, which we're allowed to carry 1 more, but it would be a regular loot, nothing too fancy in the Trove Loot department. It would just be a classic loot like this. Hopefully something that would be useful though. And we would get 2 training points. And if we decided for some strange reason we wanted more attack and defense, I mean, I don't see attack being high on the scale right now with 4 attack dice being unlocked for patches, but I could see some of you saying that defense might not be a bad idea to bump up as well. So, but we do get 2 training points versus the 1 up here. So this is where I'm stuck. And I'm not really truly stuck, but I really, really, truly want the community here to actually chime in and give me an idea as to what I should do next. What would you do in this situation if you had this card sitting in front of you? Would you go with the, I can smell the Trove Loot from here, or a war room? Now we're talking. So in the comments below, let me know what you think. Which option should I choose? That's pretty much it. I think that we'll cut it off for this video right here, and then once I get that feedback from you guys, we'll jump into it, and we'll move on with day number 7. One thing I do want to mention to you guys, for those of you that are following along in this playthrough and all the other playthroughs on my channel, I do have a Twitter account and an Instagram account. They're linked in my Rolling Solo YouTube page on the homepage. If you have either of those, please find it and join in, because if you, not subscribing there, but you're following there, if you do so, then you can actually follow me when I'm just in and around the gaming community, talking about new games, talking about things I'm looking at, and we can stay in communication that way. And Twitter is one of the more predominant ones that I'm on currently. So if you happen to have it, go for it. You can also find me on Board Game Geek, and other places like that. But just wanted to throw that out there that those you can find me in those particular mediums, I guess. So hopefully you guys are enjoying what you're seeing so far. I cannot wait to get into another battle. Everything inside of me in this video wanted to just punch one of these through and run with it and get to a battle setup, but I really want you guys' opinion on this because I think it'd be really cool for us to shape a character that that all of us, we'll take all the suggestions and pick the best one. So give me your thoughts, comments, feedback, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Too Many Bones. Keep on rolling solo.